One question I get quite often, especially around this time of the year, is when are my taxes due? There's a couple different deadlines. Most people, the majority of people, their taxes are going to be due on April 30th. Now, if April 30th lands on a weekend, then the deadline will usually be the Monday of the first business day after April 30th. This year, April 30th ends on a Friday, so it'll be Friday, April the 30th this year for the majority of taxpayers in Canada. There are certain exceptions to that rule, though. If you own a small business and you're a sole proprietor, that means you're not incorporated, but you are a small business owner, you get an extension. You're allowed to file your taxes before June the 15th, in which June the 15th would be your deadline if you're a small business owner, or if you're even married to a small business owner or in a partnership, you get that extension as well. That being said, interest starts accruing as of May the 1st. So you will pay some interest if you don't file your tax return after and you owe money. If you're in that situation and you want to extend your time, but you need to file on time, you can pay the taxes ahead of time and then you won't have to pay any interest. There are other situations where there can sometimes be an extension. Usually in a sad situation, let's say you're doing taxes for someone who's passed away. If they passed away after November the 1st, then you have 6 months after the date of the death to file their tax returns. You get a little bit of extension. CRA realizes that you'd be under a lot of grief and there's a lot of red tape and paperwork that goes along with someone passing away. So they give you an extension. If the person passed away before November 1st and was up to October 31st, anywhere from January to October 31st, in that situation, that person has to file the way you would normally file. If you would normally owe taxes on April 30th, that tax return should be filed by April 30th. If the person who passed away owned a business, they would still also get that extension to the June 15th deadline. That all being said, there's some other situations where the deadlines are really important. If you own property outside of Canada worth more than $100,000, so if it's a house you purchased for more than $100,000, or if you have stocks or bonds or stocks or bonds, I should say, that are in property or cash in a bank account that's outside of Canada, more than $100,000, you have to file a form called a T1135, and that has to be filed with your tax return. There is a $25 a day fine for every day that you're late on that return. So it's very important that you file the T1135. It's almost more important than your tax return if you're a wealthy individual who has property outside of Canada. So that's very important. So even though the deadline is April 30th, people ask me, how early should I do my tax returns? I could be greedy and say, oh, you should do your tax returns super early so I can get paid quicker. I don't believe in that. So what I tell people, the best time to do your taxes is generally the end of March. That's one of the best times to have your taxes done. By the end of March, most paperwork has come in. It gives most employers and different people who have to give out receipts, their deadline is February 28th. And sometimes people last minute are getting stuff in the mail on February the 28th. And you might not actually receive that paperwork until the first week of March. So if you do your taxes too early, you might have paperwork come in after you sent in your taxes, in which I'll have to then make an amendment to your tax return, and I'll have to fix your tax return because the paperwork came in late. So it's important that you have all your paperwork together before you come here to do your taxes. That being said, please don't leave it till April 30th. We do our absolute best to have many of our taxes done before the April 30th deadline as possible, so that we have a couple days grace, so I try to free up our time as much as possible, so in those last couple days, if someone is coming last minute, I can fit them in. That being said, please don't put me in that situation, because I don't want to have to turn you away, and I don't want to see you get a fine or a penalty. One more thing to think about. There is a form called a T3, and the T3 form is for mutual fund investments. They don't have to get their forms out to you by law. They have until 90 days after year end. So sometimes you don't even have all your forms by the end of March, because they have 90 days. So if you have a lot of investments with mutual funds that are not RRSPs, you might be still getting receipts until the end of March. So if you have a lot of investments, I would almost say wait till the first week of of April to do your taxes. So that's the deadlines. I hope that was helpful. I hope that helped you figure out when your taxes are due. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to give us a call at the office at PV3 Tax. Our phone number is 519-394-6320, and we would love to talk to you and help you in any way we can. Thank you.